Hey, Jocelyn, how are you?
Hi, Meredith, my lamb.
I am so sad you wasn't able to get on with us for advertisement week. We missed you, but we were layered up, honey. We were layered up, so we
Layered
were
up,
able
baby.
to still
I am
keep it moving.
so mad. Believe me. I mean, this is maybe 4 or 5 days before retrograde goes direct Mercury, and I got double whammy. Not one, but two computers. One told me it wouldn't allow me to go in because the browser wasn't supported, and the other one just took over an hour just for me to get on Outlook. But you know
But it
what?
doesn't matter. Look
I'm
at us
here.
now.
I'm here, but I was mad because, thank you, Meredith, for incorporating my sobriquet, which is Layer Up. It's a directive. It's a brand name, derived from my JRT Multimedia media agency.
Mhm.
It's an in-house brand, narrative media brand. But I also want it to be used as a directive. So when we're telling people to get layered up or be layered up or admiring them for being so layered,
Mhm.
the connotation behind it represents that individual has had some type of conscious awakening, and hence knows how to approach life, and any type of setbacks or challenges or just being bold and unapologetic in their own skin is because they carry this stance of being layered up. And so, just like we say things are dope or that's hot or level up or whatever it is, I want that to become part of a narrative of in our colloquialism, that people know that it's a word that represents a positive, proactive approach. Yet at the same time, as a brand, it speaks to the layered, vibrant voices of Black and Brown citizens, our oral histories, our rituals, our stories, and things that have otherwise not been celebrated. That's the brand that I'm putting together right now that's going to be launching. It's all about everyone having a seat at the table, but to hear our stories from our perspectives so that we can create new perceptions.
Well, when I heard the term layered up, instantly it resonated with me because I feel in this life we need
Mhm.
to be layered up just to survive it. One, as women, Black women, mothers, daughters, whatever it is, as women, we have to be layered. But
Oh, absolutely.
please tell us from the beginning, when did you start using the term? I know it's connected to your daughter, so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, my daughter, who is now 1 year graduated from college and quite
Yay.
layered in her own right, she's working as she took her mom's, I guess, influence, and she went from being majoring in economics and business, and then in her right before her junior year, majored in PR communications and marketing. So, and now she's a director of marketing at her old alma mater, her high school, that she attended, her private high school. So, with that said, when my daughter was probably around like 10 years old, and at that time I was working as a magazine publisher. At that time, I believe I was the publisher with Uptown Magazine. And, being a single mom, but, I would be up until sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning preparing for the next day with work and just, doing proposals and such and getting up to get Janae ready at 7 a.m. to get her ready for school. Sometimes I would say to her, girl, you need to get layered up, like layer up, like, so it would be a directive of, come on, let's hurry up and get it going. But depending on the context would use it in, I never as a little girl would want to say like ball up or like, oh, you got a lot of balls, because she'd be like, I do? No, so I said it in a way as your layers, as, thinking of even the female anatomy. It kind of came from that, just being tongue in cheek as I am. It was just more like a kind of cutesy things between she and I. Then
Right.
a couple of years ago, I accompanied a friend on as a guest for the show Checked In, and it was supposed to be, come with a girlfriend and help her kind of like de-stress and get away for the weekend. And it was only 8 episodes. It was on the OWN network,
Right.
and in the episode, I was her telling a group of women, hidden camera. You forget that you're which is the intent, And I was telling somebody, girl, you need to get some layers on you. You need to, she goes, you need to layer up and get it together and stop whining and complaining, because each woman was coming with a different disposition. Maybe someone was a caregiver with their parents. Maybe someone just had gone through a divorce. Maybe someone was trying to lose weight, but it was a way of, you bring your ride along, ride or die girl with you, as a way of saying, like, we're going to go de-stress, have, do yoga. They had a cocktail hour for the women that were single. So it was all about, kind of reconnecting with your friends. So I said that, and then the show aired several months later, but I was at my gym and someone said to me, "Oh, I see you, girl. You all layered up." And I was like, light bulb moment, and being a chief brand media strategist, now fast forward, because I'm not working in the realm of as a publisher, magazine publisher for any particular company. Um, I said, wait a minute, I have an idea. And so that was around 2000, the end of 2017. And it was right at the crux of Me Too. And so when I started to get it, try to start doing the branding, the marketing behind it, and really kind of put the meaning, which I was saying, stay poised, positioned, and prepared, because that is being layered up. We go outside if it's cold and you put your layers on. So it can be used in, like I said, many different contexts. And, but it was somehow, it took on the life of the Me Too movement, because that was what was going on at the time. And not that you cannot use that messaging for that, because it's supposed to be that, but in its now newest iteration, this past year I've been working on it, and the timing is perfect, because I knew that I wanted to create something that created a joining of particularly men and women of color, that
Right.
there's too much intersectionality with us. We, even in the races, and we talk about gender, the reason why we have so much misunderstanding and misconstrued perceptions is because everyone is huddled in their own corners, whether it's your Black girl magic, whether it's certain races that are speaking up for their own, internal organizations. But if we don't listen to one another, how do we hear? And then how do we learn? And so that's the problem. And so now we have this racial disparity, which has always been there. And I felt that this is a better time than ever. Particularly, I thank God I had a chance to go to spend time in Ghana for almost a month in January before everything was shut down. And it was the year of the return, just on the heels of that in late December. And in speaking of that, I came up with this, again, this other title to go with Layer Up. I said, we really need to get our global citizens of color aligned. And then I said, that'll be a GCOC. But then later, in these last few months, GCOC means Global Citizens of Color, Change, and Consciousness, because everyone, including people that are white, need to hear our brown and Black voices, because we're not homogenous. We have our own cultures within cultures, and that needs to be heard. And so these types of stories and the broadcast that will come with the brand Layer Up are all going to be part of a new way of us truly hearing our voices.
It's interesting that you said that, because right after this, Mr. George Floyd was murdered, and then the Breonna Taylor started coming to life, because she had been murdered before he was, but
Right.
it didn't make main media. And then Mr. Aubrey was also murdered. So all of these things started to happen. Then all of a sudden, this awakening happened.
Right.
Every major white media and even others started to see, wow, wait, what's really going on here? And then something interesting happened, and it was called, I think it was either pass the mic, I think it was pass the mic. I'll make sure that I get it correct. But it was where white women were giving their platforms on Instagram.
Oh, right. You and I
Black
discussed that
women.
before, right?
And
And how I think one of the Jenner girls did it, and
no, it was one of the Kardashian girls did.
Kardashian. That's what I meant to say.
And
Yeah, Kardashian, the Kardashian,
yeah,
yeah,
she gave
the
it
oldest
to,
one.
and it was just beautiful. She gave her platform to Boz. And so it, to me, that is what an ally does. They stopped, they listened, and they allowed us to tell our story to their audiences, because they know, and it shows that for a fact, that
Hmm.
the white women have an audience that Black women may not have for whatever reason. And
Access.
now
Mhm.
all of a sudden, these women decided. Julia Roberts was a part of it. I know Julie Wilson, who was at Essence and is now at Cosmo. She also was a part of this whole thing. So there were some phenomenal women that were given this opportunity, and I think it was the best thing happened. So hearing you talk about Layer Up and the global citizens of consciousness and letting our voice speak, that's what needs to happen. You
Right. And I'm sorry, Meredith. No, and here's the point. I feel like Kamala now. Okay, here's the point. Here's the thing. That's what she goes. She goes, here's the thing. Here's the thing. If we don't create, again, even me broadening my own, brand nomer, this global citizens of color, and I'm like, wait a minute. We know our issues. Even in Ghana, being in Ghana, right? And you may see some of the things in the back. That's my Ghana wall. You could speak to someone depending on what region you're in, if you're around Kumasi, and someone may say to you, oh, I'm not Ashanti, I'm Fante. And you're like, okay. And I mean, and they're dead serious. I mean, that's part of, I mean, I could do a history class on just how we even got here. I went to the slave castles because it's easy to always infiltrate a society of people, particularly how, the Portuguese first are the ones who came into Ghana, which was called the Gold Coast at that time, up until 1957 when they got their independence from Britain. But up until that point, they came in disguise, so to speak. They came, bearing gifts and let's do trading together. And that's what happens. But see, they found out early on that the Asante and the Fante were brutal enemies. So what happens? So there's always going to be a weak link. And I use that just tidbit of history to say, when you may know that there's a different way that your tribe, the other tribe may do something. But we still have to know at the end of the day that the overarching is that we're still from the same Pan-African community.
Right.
Even us Americans, Black Americans, we've become the bastardized, like, what are we going to do with them? Well, we're not going anywhere. But we are a amalgamation of colonialism from our ancestors, which did come by way of slavery. But just for the fact that we're still here in 2020, we're layered the hell up because we couldn't be otherwise. We came at a disadvantage where those different languages were automatically disseminated. And even the version of English that we were supposed to be taught, it was at almost at like I wouldn't even say a third grade level. It was a fraction of it, so that it was always keeping you down, making sure that you never felt like you were quite there. So it's kind of like what you said about the stuff, the access, even the access to learn was taken away from us, right? You would be beaten if you were like, girl, what you doing talking like that? Like you got some learning in you. So you weren't even supposed to be able to pronounce words correctly. It was like almost like, who do you think you are? And God forbid if you look at me in the eye too long. So that's what being layered up is, because we are a beautiful, beautiful Pan-African community. I mean, we've got so many stories and oral histories and traditions and rituals that we need to not only hear amongst ourselves, we need the stage so that we can share. So that's what's going to set the bar different from what I'm doing. Right. And then I have a show that's going to be debuting, a podcast show. So you'll be able to see me the way I'm speaking to you, and I'll be interviewing guests. But it's called Unapologetically Jocelyn Taylor, culturally conscious and curious. And I am always culturally conscious and curious, because I always want to learn about, if someone says, let's use, for instance, they're Jewish. Well, I can tell the difference if you're Ashkenazi Jewish or if you are, from another tribe. And so, but we don't do that. Sometimes, depending on where we live in the country, we just assume, oh, well, they must be Hasidic, or they must be, they are from this. No, that's just one culture within a culture. And so there's so many things that we all need to start conversing about so that we can listen and hear. And that's what
I think, excuse me. I just think that we as Black people are not allowed that, because when on the checkboard, they always want to say, are you Black, African American, and then European and white and everything else. But then when they see us physically, because I'm Black and you're Black, they assume we have the same history. I'm Haitian. My history is
Mhm.
going to be completely different. The way I culturally do things. And even
Absolutely.
you as a northerner, an African American northerner,
Right.
your upbringing was completely different than the way Victor's was coming from New Orleans. So there is a
So
difference.
if I could take it down even further. I mean, I live in North Jersey. I can do the Jersey girl accent, like God forbid, oh my God. No, I'm just kidding. But so a North Jersey person is going to be completely different from someone from Central Jersey. And it doesn't mean that we don't that we're trying to get away from being part of someone else, but it's just like I went back and told the story about Africa. I can be of the Ga, I can be Asante, I can be Fonte, and there's several others. And they might have, and they all may speak Tree, which is the universal, like we all speak English here, but how many of us all speak different versions of English? And we understand that. And these are just important stories that need to be told
Right.
because, like I said, Black people, Pan African people, we're not homogenous.
Yes.
That we, like you said, when I was growing up in school in West Orange, New Jersey, I think on my own, I had to go and seek out if I wanted to learn about a Black inventor because we were told about, I mean, I was kicked out of class many times in the 8th grade because I challenged the teacher about Hannibal, just something like that. But because I was layered up, I
Right.
was layered up from my parents at home who taught me a sense of self. So I always was very proud, always, and I grew up in an era where we called ourselves Black. That's before, our fourth renaming, which we've gone from color to Negro to, I was part of the Black culture. And then, now we say African American. And then there must still be some confusion about it because they're like, are you Black or African American? So
Right.
it's like, I mean, the root of us all come from that. This is my skin. Did I do Wakanda? This is my skin. I love it. But I have my own layers. We each have our own layers.
Right.
And that is what is the beauty of it. And that's why our stories need to be told. Because quite frankly, I never hear any of my Jewish friends saying, well, I'm African, Hebrew, Russian, Jew.
Right.
Because you, at one point, whether it was 2,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago, the last time I looked, Egypt is in where? Africa. So what happened is because we may have come here, the majority of us, the 13.7 million of us roughly that are here now can trace our lineage to some part of West Africa. We still became our own culture here. Everyone that's migrated somewhere took on the culture of that region. As I said, you have Ashkenazi people that settled in the German region, of a place, a part of Germany, in the northern part of Europe, and then you have the Sephardics, and nobody
It's
makes that
not,
distinction.
yeah,
They
it's not
they
even limited to that because everybody that came into the Americas has changed. Every single
right, and they took on the American culture, but
right.
then they
What
brought
was
part of their
new?
own culture with them.
Because
Right,
if we all do enough history research on our history, the Italians did it, the
absolutely.
Irish
Irish.
did it,
Well, the Irish came here in
and the
droves
Chinese.
after the Great Potato Famine in the
Right.
1840s.
And I feel
The
and I'm glad we're talking about this whole education part of it
Mhm.
because this whole segment of being part of Advertisement Week was because of the challenges that HBCU students have. People were already struggling before um, the coronavirus, but now it's even worse. And African American HBCU schools were suffering greatly, and the students are
And I'm
still
glad you thank you
challenged.
for bringing that up, Meredith, because I want to address something. Thank you, because that's another important thing, and it's the same overarching theme in everything that we're talking. Even though I'm putting my tidbits of flavor up in your ear with history, but unfortunately, again, I mentioned my daughter when we first started speaking. She switched her major because Jocelyn Taylor, in the industry for so long, 25 years plus, I happened to be at that time a couple of years ago at one of the top 3 big ad agencies in New York meeting with someone. Someone happened to walk by and saw me, and she goes, Jocelyn, is that you? And
Mm.
I'm not going to name who the company is right now. So I came over, she came over, we hugged and kissed. She was like, how's your daughter? She must be, and she almost, and is she in high school? I said, oh, wow. So she's going to graduate from
Mhm.
college. Start talking a little bit further. She said, oh, what does she major in? I go, oh my God, this is perfect.
Right.
Can I give you her resume? So as her mother, because I understood, I immediately was like, I called her in school, said, send me your resume. When I saw it, I was like, Okay, let me re-swizzle this. So I fixed up the resume for her, and we need that. So, it's that
Right.
whole village thing. I helped my daughter, I redid it, I posted it on LinkedIn, and then I got it to the friend on the inside. And this is a true story. So this is important for me to say as it relates to our kids. After that, she said, we are in desperate need to get Black kids, particularly Black kids, in our programs because there's not people that look like me here. There's not a lot of us.
Right.
And then all these decisions that are made on the inside for buying decisions on the outside for the way that we see products, the way that, things are, an ad buyer will buy something, the
Right.
way creative makes the commercial. All this is only coming from the same perspective, from the same white people.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, so it's my job to create this mandate that we need to pull more of us in and get them in the internship. She goes, and it's a paid internship.
Right.
And I said, well, do you guys ever advertise this? This is so good. She said, no. And she goes, that's the problem. Everybody already pulls in people, their brothers, uncle, friends, sister. Everybody already has someone they pull in. She goes, get me
Right.
your daughter's resume. I get her my daughter's resume and I ask her, can I get several other friends' kids that are either graduating, because it was for a program if you were like in your junior year or getting ready to come out in your senior year. You could do the internship either in your junior or senior.
Right.
So she was like, sure. This true story. I went and got even people that didn't even major in English or pre this or pre that. I was just like,
Right.
look, here's a chance to work at this agency. This agency is a worldwide renowned agency.
Right.
I got her about 12 resumes. So in the interim, over that month, people kept asking me, I didn't hear anything back. That's why I called.
Right.
She said, Joss, I can only get one over to the Ohio River.
And
Now,
this
we know
is
what that
the
means.
challenge that we.
Yeah, she goes, I can only get one. And I go, what? And so I said, but what about my daughter's best friend? Blah, 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 And she said, Joss, I know it's messed up. Only one. And when I use that phrase, get to the Ohio River, Black people know what I'm talking about. But if anyone's not listening, this is back when we were getting out of leaving the plantation. And a lot of times we knew if we got to that Ohio River and got over, it was freedom. You had more of a chance going west than sometimes going north.
Mhm.
So I'm just using tongue in cheek with that. But she said, I could only get one. And she was like, so unless you want me to get your daughter's friend, I was like, no. I want my daughter to have a job. And that was just to get her resume into consideration. It didn't mean she was going to necessarily get in, but she was on the inside and
And that's important because people don't want to assume that just because I recommended you, you're automatically going to get it.
Right. And she was doing her best. So she got it in, and then she was happy to call me and say, congratulations, Janae got in. So yay for me, because I was like, yay, when Janae comes out of college, now she has an internship for 3 months. She's going to get paid, and it will segue into a full-time position.
And key point, and that to me, I want to stop you right there. That is one of my frustrations with young people. I'm going to start with young people, but I'm also going to say this about Black people, young Black people. But I've also been taught, because I want to listen and learn too, because I'm also listening and learning. I'm trying to learn. Most Black children, they need the money. That's why they're working. It's not all for getting a pair of sneakers or getting the latest anything. So when a student can't intern, and definitely can't intern for free, I have to learn to appreciate and understand that and be compassionate and empathetic to that specific need. So we as employers need to take into consideration, if we're truly going to give young Black and brown children the opportunity, we have to stop calling them lazy and understand that they may need that money to survive, because we don't know their financial circumstances.
And more cases than not, they will, because
yes,
I once upon a time when I was in college, I mean, yeah, I worked at the time. I remember I worked at Shabbaros, I made pizzas, but unless you just have parents that are taking care of everything for you,
right,
which I didn't, you're gonna need you want your own pocket change.
Yes.
And then that's what we're trying to teach them too. We're trying to teach them the
Exactly.
responsibility, even if you got it like that. You don't want to be like, here you go, here's 200, here's 300. Now, my daughter was a student athlete, so she actually got a stipend because she played college basketball. But so I didn't really have it was great because she got a
Right.
free.
But how many other children
Right.
don't have that
Right.
opportunity?
And
I
so
think
to your point, we need to start having these conversations, and I'm going to hold to task the other folks that are part of Advertising Week, the Black folks that have they're wealthy already. A lot of the ones that were invited to sit at this table during advertising week, without me naming names, they've got their money, they got their titles, or they were able to segue and to underwrite or fund or raise the capital quickly because of their branding, because of their name,
Mhm.
and get great positioning to start their entrepreneurial venture. But you know what? We need you guys in particular to also speak up, speak out, and layer up and get more involved.
Right.
Because you know what? I'll use LeBron as an example, who I love. But at the end of the day, he can come down and speak in Newark at at an old project housing site or wherever it may be.
Right.
But at the end of the day, he's going back to his multi-million dollar mansion.
Right.
And just even if you passed out sneakers and this, that, and the other, you're just pacifying these kids. You're not uplifting them. You're not elevating them. And I'm not saying he's done anything wrong or that he hasn't done something that so I'm not even speaking to what I know. I'm not speaking against, I'm just using an example because sometimes our kids, especially, in more urban environments, get hyped up on when we're talking about a sport or somebody entertaining. And we're beyond that. And the pivot is the get up. That's the pivot. It's not by how you fell, it's how you get up.
Right.
It's how you know what options and choices are there. But if you're
Right.
generationally in an oppressed or marginalized environment and you think, well, everybody's like me and nobody gives a damn, then you sometimes become the fabric of that bastardization. And so
And
it becomes a
I think that's
self-fulfilling
why we,
prophecy.
but I feel like, excuse me, that's why the five of us as women, we decided because we've earned these opportunities, we've clawed our way up to there, and thank goodness we never, and thank goodness we never had to hurt anybody or step on anybody to get there. We want to give back now. We want to help,
Absolutely.
and that's why we decided, like, through this, that we wanted to go to the UNCF and say, hey, listen, what can we do to get these children in here? That's why I'm personally grateful to Matthew Schechner for offering the opportunity for 10,000 children to come in here and see what advertisement week is all about. But you said something that was interesting. Some of the kids in marketing school don't even know what advertisement week is. So
Well, yeah,
that
but
causes a
actually,
problem.
my daughter's girlfriend, she graduated from, I can say she graduated from Seton Hall last year, and she majored in PR. And, I know there's certain schools, like, you've got the Cy Newhouse School of Journalism at Syracuse. And there's certain schools that there will be in partnerships with, University of Rhode Island or here, there, that they will do recruitments. And 9 out of 10, they're predominantly white schools. So not that Seton Hall is not predominantly white, but it depends on if one has a heavy program in PR communications and such. But a lot of times these kids, especially we're talking about our kids, our HBCU kids, some know, often maybe not. And they don't even know how to even get that seat at that table because
Right.
it's there. They don't even know that table has even been carved out. And
Right.
so it's important that people at our level, I'm not a celebrity. I mean, once upon a time, I was working at a lifestyle luxury magazine, and
Several.
I started back
Several.
further. I started at Hamptons and Gotham and Black Enterprise, even. So sometimes people only see you, and this is where my pivot came from. You're only as good as the title and the affiliation with that other brand. But when you're BYOB, be your own brand, be your own boss. That's the value that we need to teach these kids, because particularly now in this age that we live in. Because you don't have to think because you have a comma and a title that someone gave you that you're the bomb from that. You're layered up. So you already, particularly if you've made it as far as to be able to get to college, and we're talking about the HBCU kids,
Right.
and whether your parents have money or whether you're under a work program, who cares? You got an opportunity that probably our grandparents never even could even consider. And
Right.
even if they did have college degrees, particularly women, the best you could be was a teacher. And not to say we need our teachers, but if you wanted to be a lawyer, look at Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I mean, she was messed with, and she was even though she's a white woman, Jewish woman, but the fact that she was just a woman during that time, and she graduated number one in her class at Columbia University from law school. So it was just the time, because again, it goes back to perspective creates perception. And that's why it's a time that we're going to get everyone layered up. We're going to have global citizens of color, consciousness, and change all be part of it. But it's about hearing our stories. It's about Be quiet. It's about us right now. And the only way, I don't want to hear about, I don't, look, I'm speaking.
Right.
And I loved her teeth. She looked great. She was like, I'm speaking.
And showed her pretty teeth.
And her teeth look great. I got to tell Kamala when I see, I'm like, girl, your teeth were sparkling. But all seriousness, when you because your life is not, we're not in Shangri-La, so there's always going to be pits and turns and challenges. But like I said, it's about the get up, and you can even feel a little bruised sometimes. It's okay,
It's
because
okay.
it gives you time to rebuild and reassess people, places, and things that don't serve your journey anymore.
Right.
And you may say, you know what?
And that's what Courtney had to say when she was speaking about that too. And it's okay if you decide that this doesn't work for you, because she went from being an engineer and doing a hard stop and saying, I'm going this way. And
Right.
it's okay.
It is okay. Matter of fact, it's better than okay, because it shows what? Your layers. I mean, I hate to keep sounding corny saying it, but that's why LayerUp is such a universal, beautiful word to use, because it's like, it truly shows what you're made of, right?
Right.
That's what it's saying. This is what I'm made of. This is my heart, my spirit, my mind, and nobody can take that from me. And once I'm determined to do something, we are our own ultimate power source. We are truly are. That's why back when FDR said there's nothing to fear but fear itself, when you let that rest in your belly, you can tear away the things that that you may have already created, or let outside noises, which are other people bringing in their insecurities and their uncertainties. So that's why you have to be focused, layered, and really understand that when you have that conscious shift, you always will be culturally curious and conscious. Because when you sit there and dumb and go, well, I didn't know, you should always be culturally curious and conscious. You should always know about, there's more than ever now, you can just pick up your phone and Google anything you want.
Exactly.
You can Google it. You can, if back in my day, we had the Dewey Decimal System. We had to go to the library. We had to go through drudgery, going through all these, encyclopedias. But maybe that's why we were so layered. Maybe why this generation, because we didn't have it easy. As a matter of fact, we didn't think it was hard. It was just the way that it was. But sometimes
there's always going to be a generation that didn't have it easy. But
right.
Like,
but we didn't have it hard. I don't think it was hard. I loved being a kid, a teenager in the 80s. And so I'm not even saying that we had it hard, but we're comparing. But there is no reason that you should not know every week. And I used to make that challenge with myself, particularly growing up in a predominantly white environment. I was like, I want to know as much as possible about the achievements of what people who look like me, what did they do? When they said, Jocelyn, whatever class that was in, we're going to learn, go pick a inventor. We can give you some to choose from. And I'd say, no, I'm going to go to the library and look someone up. And that's how I learned about Benjamin Banneker. That's where I learned about Fannie Lou Hamer. Right. They did not teach that in my curriculum at school. And that's what this is about. It's about curriculum. So it's all about education. And if we can impart that to other people, even adults, there's a lot of adults that know. Like if I said to certain adults, what's December 6th, 1865? What does that signify to you? And they're like, you should know that like July 4th. I'm sorry. It's the 13th Amendment, the ratification of the ending of slavery. Period. We should know that. Every Black person should be like, and should know, lift every voice and sing. But we weren't taught that. Look, you got quiet, Meredith, but we weren't taught that. And we should be able to come back quickly and say, oh, wait a minute, So you want, because in 1854, and I might be off my date a little bit, but when Frederick Douglass, he made a rousing speech. And I wish I knew it by heart, but he made a comment about, I am ashamed of July 4th, because I'm ashamed of the people that stand around here and tell me that I'm supposed to have this patriotism and that you treat an animal better than you treat me. And so, 200, well, how many years ago was that? 246 years ago when it was signed into effect, the Declaration of Independence, our people, and you made that distinction, I'm from Haiti, but that's all part of the Americas. So yeah, our story, my ancestors' story, it just depends on what port you got off of.
Right.
That's it. You were with the French, that your people, and they and the Spaniards had Hispaniola. One side which became Dominican Republic, the other side was French.
And
But this is
that's why it's so important for us to go back, know the history so we know how to move forward strategically and
right.
aligning ourselves with the right people. And there is a statement that says it's if you are the smartest person in the room, you need to leave that room.
Oh
You know,
wow.
I
There,
don't
okay,
want
I'll
to be
talk. Look, I'll talk to you later, Mary. No, I love. No, I'm joking because I love being around smart people because I'm a
you have
sponge.
to.
I want to learn.
Okay.
I'm always learning. I'm always. There's no way. There's no way you can know everything. I'm a proud woman in my 50s. I love my age. I love when I was born. I love the era that I came up in. So I've got like 15 doctorates from the time, from college up to now. Oh my God, you can't tell me anything because there I go again. I'm layered up. But that's what makes me layered up is because I've lived, I've experienced, I've lost, I've lived, I've lost, I've lost, I've lost, I've lost. I got back up again and I
Right.
rose higher. That's what makes you, and you can't get that necessarily. So you can't blame too many kids early on because I was in the layering process from 22 up, but it doesn't matter. But I had that burning in my belly to always want to
Right.
become and be better.
Right.
And then there was just stuff you're going to have to go through. But right now, as it relates to our HBCU students, as it relates to our young black citizens,
Right.
we need to. The education is the most important thing, and education doesn't always necessarily have to come by way of opening a book. It's opening your mind.
Right.
That's the
And the
conscious shift.
willingness
That's the
to learn.
awareness. I'm sorry.
And the willingness to learn.
And the willingness, but that's what I'm saying. If you can trigger someone to be layered up, you can take that into any context. So even though I had mentioned
And
in our
and
conversation,
then to add to it, now you can build equity because you already built equity within yourself.
there you
Now
go. That's
you
you
can
are
go
your
outside.
ultimate power source. You are
Exactly.
your ultimate. When you walk into a room, you don't have to open your mouth because you can see confidence or lack thereof in a person in 3 seconds. That's how we size each other up. It takes 3 seconds to look at somebody and go, whether it's something that could be a romantic pursuit, whether it's somebody that you want to do business with. If someone
Right.
appears to be unsure and uncertain and questionable to themselves, you're like, why would I want to mess with you? So, right? Like if you don't have it together, and again, everyone doesn't have that wherewithal. So we have to be able to recognize that, and that's why mentorship is so important. That's
Exactly.
why getting those
So do
interviews.
you feel like a lot of the things that you're sharing, it came in time and thus now we can pass it on to the next generation that's coming? It's
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I always say, like I said, I've been like this since I've been about 4 months old. My mother said I started walking at 7.5 months, which sounds crazy to me. But I went back and saw my baby book not too long ago, and she had it actually recorded from back in the 60s. And I'm like, Ma, that makes no sense. I must have rickets. Who walks at 7.5 months? No, I'm sorry. She said I started speaking, and she goes, at 9.5 months, you were walking. She goes, you scared me because I was like, whoa, you were like, the first words you said to your dad was, hi, Bill. I was like, what? She goes, you scared us. We were like, where's this kid come from? You're like, hi, Bill. I'm like, so I'm like, wow. But so I've been layered for a minute. But in all seriousness, no, but you know what? Because I'm saying that urge to want to be curious, and
Mhm.
maybe I wasn't calling it culturally curious. I was always asking why. I always wanted to know more. And back in the day when we were kids growing up, it always was like, don't be grown. Okay, now mind your business. Kids don't supposed to be seen and not
Right.
heard. But I always, and that's our culture. That that's a black cultural thing. I don't care if you're from the islands or the Americas, here in the States. It's just a thing in terms of deference at that
Right.
time when we grew up, that how you respect your elders. And you knew not to be standing around trying to listen too much because that word, you being grown. But don't be grown now. Um, but I do feel that the ones who are here, whether you don't have to be in your 50s to be Larry, with those in their 30s or 40s, you gotta pull back because it sounds cliche-ish, but it is the next generation. It is such a next generation. I never learned about how I learned about racial disparity was when a little girl asked me in the fourth grade. She said the word for black people. Now, where did she hear this? She
Right.
said the word for black people is the N word. I mean, normally I'd say it, but I won't say it here. And
No.
it was very innocent. And she said, "What's the word that black people have for white people?" And we were playing, at recess. And I was like, "I don't know. I asked my mommy when I go home tonight." Like seriously, like I did. It was no, I wasn't offended. She could have said the word for Black people is called leaf, and it would have been. I took it the same way. I said, I don't know. Ask my mom
Right.
because it didn't bother me. But that meant that she was listening to. She really thought that was the word for us, and
Right.
so she, I guess, in her curiosity, she said, "Oh, there's this one Black girl in the whole fourth grade. When I see her on the recess, well, I'll ask her." And I just like, I don't know. I'll ask my mom
So
later.
interesting.
So so
It's
that's my point. And so this is learned behavior. So what if we start teaching
exactly.
differently? What if we start teaching because, and not just the kids, that if we get this whole value proposition called Layer Up really out there, and it's the way that I'm planning on getting it branded and the things that we're doing, because we're going to be launching on a new multicultural platform called the Incubator, and that's another conversation. So it's everything multicultural, and not just it like LGBTQIA plus. It's even they even have a platform called Able for people that are disabled. They
Mm,
have Gen X, they have Latinx, they everything African. They have. I mean, this is really cool. So my portion, my content channel is going to be called Voices. So this is really a cool time because, and I want to make sure that when a non-person of color goes to Voices, it's because we're giving them a curriculum,
right.
right? So it's for all of us to learn because we cannot continue to create intersectionality
Right.
if we expect to move forward.
Right.
It's okay for us to know in our own huts what's going on, but we've got to start having these conversations because they truly have the wrong perception. And like I said, my show is going to be mainstream, off the mainstream media news path because again, that's package, that's business,
Right.
that's advertising. Which what do we see in the advertising? Out of the six networks, the six major networks that own all the media as we see it, we see pharma first. You see a bunch of pharma stuff. You see and stuff that I never even saw before. I'm like, was this stuff advertised back when we were kids, or it's just almost like propaganda being thrown at you. They pair it with pop culture music, and all of a sudden you're singing, oh, 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 authentic. Oh, you're like, wait a minute, what's that a drug for? You know what I mean? So we're just it's time.
It's so
You know what I mean?
interesting, I think Jada Pinkett just had a red table conversation with Ice Cube and
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Ice Ice Baby.
no, no, with Ice Cube and
Mm.
Van, and there was another person. He is just so on point with his ask and his ask of us, of
Mhm.
asking for what we want and knowing our worth. And I say we meaning Black people because we're the ones, if not layered, is suffering. And this COVID virus is
Yeah.
it's just showed the weakness in society that we are living in. It just showed all the cracks. It just opened up all the holes. And so to end the conversation, I'd like for you, can you tell us some points that the students should walk away from, and corporations that say that they're allies? How can they help these students in the HBCUs?
Well, I I do believe that there is certain outreach to particular schools, but to your point, we all hear about Morehouse and Spelman and Howard, and then it kind of stops right there. There's about 30 more schools, and maybe some have closed, unfortunately, for that very reason because they need the funding, they need the money. Let's put the spotlight on FAMU and Cheney and Lincoln. And I'm just going off the top of my I went to Dell State DSU for 2 years, the first 2 years of school. That's in Dover, Delaware, where they were saying that Biden said he pretended he went to, which I know he didn't say that. And just places like, I mean, there are other places, and we have to do our due diligence. And even
Right.
within the schools, finding out more about these types of programs so that they can be the conduit.
Right.
But not just because we're having this magical dear white people moment that everyone who wants to make some type of atonement, and some people are really being sincere, other people because it's part of their corporate social responsibility efforts. And so it's like, I want to be on the right side of, of what's happening. I don't want to be the one that says that we're not part of the listening. Truly listen. we are not aliens. We're not going anywhere.
Right.
We're not going nowhere. Pretty much. Meaning,
And honestly, another thing that just rubs me personally the wrong way is when people make this statement of, we have to figure out how to market to Black people as though that they come from another planet. So
no.
they
And
adapt.
I'm glad. Thank you for saying that. You know why, Meredith? Because back when I was the publisher with Uptown Magazine and Viv Magazine, which is was, I don't know if it still exists, but it was an all app publication that's on the Zenio publishing platform. So it's all 1% app, not a open it up PDF, but a true app before its time, quite frankly. And prior to working there and when I worked at Uptown, I bought in Louis Vuitton, I bought in Christian Dior watches, I bought in Bentley, Aston Martin. I mean, I curated my own high-end list of brands. I used to go to all the conferences. So even though I had my team, I always called myself a player coach. And we couldn't afford, I couldn't afford to just come in the mornings and throw my coat and hat over my assistant's head and just have meetings all day. No, we had to dig in. So we were actually in training to be even that much greater because we knew how to do everything.
Right.
And this is at the publisher chief business officer level. However, I didn't get the diversity budget from Louis Vuitton because last time I looked, when I go shopping in Louis Vuitton, they don't say, "Oh, go over there. That's the Black section over there, and then that's the Asian section," right? When I shop at Louis Vuitton, you take my same green dollars or my credit card.
Right.
So, to your point, don't be conveniently using diversity when it comes to, you invite us to your table, and that's what I used to say to them. You're over indexing in the same publications. Why don't you give us a percentage of that and invite? We've heard of Mercedes and Jaguar and Land Rover and all the other brands that were, that I was bringing in and my team was bringing in. It's not our first time because they're reading this magazine, but show us that you value us as a consumer.
Right.
Show us that you value us by allowing us to put together a program of engagement that's going to be consisting of the actual advertisement, social media, and online or digital integration, events. And that's what we always had to come. So we always had to come stronger, bigger, and better. But to your point, when you're dealing with high-end and luxury, there is no such thing as a diversity budget. And in most cases right now, after affirmative action was no longer mandated in most cases, people were either pulling back, and that really showed who really didn't want to be at the table, but they were doing it just to be, on the right side. So now I say to you companies, you cut me here, I still bleed red. I am an American. I'm part of the fabric of what we call America. I am Black. You can see that. You don't have to know all my iterations of what creates me to be Black, but I represent that.
Right.
And I'm clearly a woman. So at the end of the day, in the beginning of the day and throughout the day, just keep that in mind. And I speak pure, high pitch. I speak what they call the Queen's English very well. I have a very high, understanding of English, the English language. And so you don't have to talk down to me or dumbing me down, because in all races of people, there's all different socioeconomics of groups of people. And so the assumption doesn't have to be, oh, she's Black or you're so different. No, I'm an example. I'm not an anomaly. And it's like any other race of folks. And so it's just time for us to get that message. Some may have better advantages than others. And that again goes with all people, everybody, no matter what. And so
I also feel it's across the board too. I don't care, because I'm in the bridal industry with Worldwide Magazine. I tell my brides the same way. If it doesn't feel good, if you don't feel treated well, if you don't feel represented, why are you insisting on giving your hard-earned dollars to people that don't want you? There are a plethora of designers that want your money, Black, white, Latino, and Asian, that will take your money. But if you are not appreciated and valued and you're just a token, take your money elsewhere. That's your power.
Well, that's part of being layered up, right? Because if you know that the value is in you, your voice, and that your dollar counts, take it to someone that you know that's going to appreciate it. Absolutely. You don't have to be, you're just as dope whether you have a Louis Vuitton or a Birkin bag on your arm. As a matter of fact, I don't even care about all that stuff. I never really did. I liked it because I love clothes and I love fashion, but I never thought that the bag made me. You know, when it was on my arm, oh, that's when that bag came to life. And then I put my little scarf on the end because it was me. It wasn't the other way around. So, you know, it's I think now, because like I said, there's been a conscious awakening that people's frequencies, because of our pandemic, the pandemic, it's been to me almost spiritual because
Right.
these things had to happen so that other things could be heard.
Right.
Because otherwise, we were like going at DEFCON 5 in 100 different directions.
Right.
And we still are to a certain degree, but there's a whole hell of a lot more people that are listening now and that are at least making the effort,
Right.
you know, that are trying. So let's continue this trend. One, in the next several months to less than a year, we will probably be out of the COVID pandemic, but this racial pandemic that's been going on for
Let's
400 years,
go on for a little while longer.
oh, about 400 years, yeah, about, you know, a little about, you know, 300 and, you know, 90 days, a little more, or years, a little before this all started. But, you know, in all seriousness, we now, we know what's going on. We've watched, you know, from Malcolm X to Martin Luther King, you know, to people that were leaders and trying to create that shift in awareness, even the Black Panther movement. That started on all positive pretenses. And again, we're going to be thwarted because, you know, Stokely Carmichael and Huey Newton and all those guys that were part of it, you had the government trying to infiltrate and create dissension from within. As I talked about the Asante and the Fonte, there's always going to be that. So we've got to be smart enough to be ahead of the curve and not allow that human side of us to be like, oh, well, he said that or she said that, or they must be doing. And we got to stop thinking that if just because if we do something that's white, it's better. We got to start hiring our own folks.
That is
And the
exactly
folks,
the point we made when we were talking with
yeah,
Beverly.
and the folks that we hire, they need to be better and accountable for and believe in the fact that we believed in you enough to make this happen. Now don't disappoint.
Right.
Don't falter to, like I mentioned about when I was a publisher, magazine publisher, I didn't have the luxury of being like a publisher at a Condé Nast or a Hearst. Matter of fact, I could go in there and be 1,000 times better than their current publisher because I knew everything I did was more of a challenge. I couldn't just walk in. Now, when I worked at Gotham and Hamptons, and I was like, "Hi, this is Jocelyn Taylor from Hamptons Magazine." Yeah, I'd have a meeting in 5 seconds. When I was Jocelyn Taylor calling on behalf of Black Enterprise, it'd be like, "Oh, we're not doing diversity." I said, "I never said diversity." And I handled travel, tobacco, and beverage back then. So it's really perception once again, but
It's
we've got
such
to
a
help.
strange thing. I have to say, I'm sorry. The
No, it's
fact
okay.
that they want to put you in a box because they hear the name, the essence, all of a sudden, oh, let me put you in the diversity side. I never said
Yeah.
it. But I often get the same question too. Like I was telling you guys the other day when we were going over for this, the speaking of preparing for advertising week, I would say, hey, this is Meredith from World Bride Magazine. And then you get to finally get the meeting. Then you get the shock look and you get the look that, oh my God, I wish the earth could open up now because I don't want to be here. I wasn't prepared that she was Black. And then you get there and the question they ask is, well, who's your demographic? And I'm totally confused at this point because, and then I have to, I have to do a Kamala. I'm going to use Kamala now and compose myself and say, world,
Bride
anybody around the
magazine. Right.
world that's getting married, that's a bride.
And the tagline is nuptials around the world. Let's not forget.
So then I don't understand when somebody says that. So that instantly that told me, you don't want me here. You don't want to see me here. You can't understand how I even got here. So already your mind, it's shut down. I'm not going to get through to you. So now I'm speaking out of frustration because you already closed down. You don't hear anything I'm saying. And I know this. And I keep going through the spiel because somehow I feel like they're going to hear me and something's going to stick and it doesn't. So my goal in putting us all together, us 5 women, was to show, because Kelly was telling us the story that she had to deal with in the classical music arena, where people make her feel like, well, oh, are you the singer? And I'm like, the singer? And she says, I'm holding a violin in my hand. So there's this stereotype and this look that
perception.
It's
It's perception based on misinformation. So
And
it's
that's it.
actually called
But they put us in the box like that. They don't put
because
other groups in the box.
it's called LWB. That's the LWB effect, living while black.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just so it's frustrating. And then like I think Anderson Cooper, after Kamala did her, had her debate with the vice president,
Mhm.
it was like, yeah, she had to be really careful about what she said because of the angry black woman syndrome, and being judged by that. Oh my God. It's like, wait a minute.
He wasn't. I don't
What's
think he was
wrong
being.
with
I don't
that?
think he was being facetious. I think he was just pointing out,
Oh,
like,
no. I understand it. No. I
yeah,
love Anderson Cooper. Love him. Love him. He's an
yeah.
advocate for do the right thing. And that's not why I meant by that. I'm saying, oh my God, the fact that he even has to explain that and then for people to hear that she literally could not be angry even when she felt attacked. She
Oh
had
my God. She had
pain.
to put on a had to put on a smile, because imagine if that had been a week before and she looked at him and said, "Man, shut up." Can you imagine? No. Yeah, I mean, we could imagine it, but if she had said, "Man, shut up," or "Shut up, man,"
She would
it
have
would
been
have been
disrespectful, rude. She
yeah.
shouldn't be this. So
She's
she has to maintain
disrespectful.
her.
Right.
Yes, and that's the challenges
Of
that.
being a black woman.
That's it.
Of
And
being a
so, but
black
then
woman.
again,
Now
let's not
we
play
can
the
take
race
it.
card. Let's
Yeah,
not
a
play the
black
race card.
woman. Because he was mansplaining. He was mansplaining, where it's
Yeah.
just like a big lion going like this over here. He was mansplaining her. And I loved how she was like, "You will not tell me." I can't wait to see Maya Rudolph do this reenactment this Saturday, because I know it's gonna be on Saturday Night Live. But it was
But I
like,
just feel like this, yes, we're facing all of these challenges and everything else. I just want to encourage all our young people through our conversation and looking back in our lives that don't give up, layer up, be prepared for it. It's okay if you face these challenges. You're not the first, you won't be the last. Just be prepared. Wait, what does Stanley Tucci say in The Devil's Wear Prada? Gird your loins,
I love it.
gird your
But you know
loins
what?
and get ready for it. And just know, at the very least, you have a Beverly Johnson who's fighting for you for equity. You have a Jocelyn Taylor who's going to teach you how to layer up. And you have a Kelly, who is literally going to have music to your step, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
give you that peace of mind. And with Courtney, with her, sanctuary, spa that's coming, she
It's
is
about
the
teaching you
truth.
how to self-love, self-love.
Exactly.
And that any just sanctuary, just the word itself, that's another thing. And I know we could be talking for hours, so we got to get off this. But self-love is part of being layered up, because when that awareness happens,
Yep.
it triggers you to look within yourself.
Yep.
And that, because you love yourself, because you want better for yourself, that's where the self-preservation comes in, the
Absolutely.
actualization comes in. And that's the key important thing. And so it makes you have that fire not to give up. As a matter of fact, my tagline, because the hashtags are not connected yet, but I can tell you the tagline is "Choose Your Voice." That
Yeah.
is that's the tagline for
That's a
Layer
nice way
Up.
to end this
Yeah,
segment.
it's choose your voice. Like, you can't stay back and not say anything. You got to speak up. You got to stand up for something greater than yourself. Are
Mhm.
you about craft? Are you about community? Are you about a cause? But you got to be
And I
about something, or
and I
you might as
feel
well
we
not
need
be
to be strategic about our moves too. We don't always have to be angry
there.
about it.
No.
We need to, sometimes it's okay to retreat, get back, and play chess. We're not playing checkers.
Oh, I like that.
Make strategic.
That's why I always say we live on a proverbial chessboard. You just got to know when to checkmate someone, and who's your bishop, who's the king, who's your queen, and you have to, like you said, be strategic and sit back and be quiet,
Yeah.
so that you can really understand the playing field. I had to learn that because I'm very reactionary. I'm like fire. I'm an Aries, so everything is like, "What'd you say?" And then I've, over the years, have been able to hone that down, and create more self-awareness. That years ago, one of my bosses said to me, "Josh, you're the best salesperson here, but you have to learn to manage your managers." And at first I was insulted by that, but I'm like, but I'm just telling the truth. And sometimes it's not telling the truth, it's about not saying anything. and just being chill and
Right.
paying attention. But I had to learn that. I was in my 30s when that was said to me. So, but I'm here for the kids. I would love to mentor. I was doing mentoring back, when I was more in a, I wouldn't say I was in corporate, but just more in a visible role.
Right.
Now my company, JRTmultimedia.com. Go look it up. Um, um, it's a full service branding boutique agency, PR, marketing, image consulting, I am a chief brand media strategist. I come up with the big ideas, we execute
Right.
and help brands monetize.
Right.
So with that said, I can show somebody like you don't have to give up. You don't have to think because you're a
Right.
certain age or because you're a gender, like, oh, now what do I do? You layer up, you
And
pivot,
let's get
and
rolling.
and then you keep it rolling. You keep it rolling. You might get a little hay and some dirt on you, tuck and roll. Tuck
Right.
and roll. Tuck and roll.
Thank you
Tuck and roll.
so
Look,
much,
I got
Jocelyn.
a leaf in there. Yeah, but this was fun. Thank you, Meredith.
You welcome. You
I'm so
welcome.
sorry I missed the girl. I wouldn't have been able to talk so much, as loquacious as I am, but I'm
Don't
glad
worry
I
about it. It's going to happen again. I think
will.
Matthew and his beautiful team love us. He was so generous. He gave us a call after this. I cried like a baby because this is a dream come true to have been
Yeah.
able to be listed on Advertisement Week. Like I said, it was the most phenomenal 2 weeks. When I
Mhm.
first went there, I was literally like a kid in a candy store.
I know you were.
I wanted to open the doors for everybody that looked like me and just say, come in and
I want to say to
willing
you, so
to.
if Matthew Schechner hears this, that you have a natural tiger in your corner. This is somebody that loves hard. She's passionate. You know, you may think, oh my God, Meredith's getting on my nerves, but you have to love her because it's sincere. It's from the heart. And I'm serious. We've been
Oh,
friends
thank
probably
you.
about 15 years. I don't remember I don't
I
even
think
remember
it
what,
is.
but I consider her a friend, a ride or die. She's a true gem, and she gives 100. No, I'm sorry. She gives if it's 100, it's times three. She gives 300%. That's one way she. It'll drive you insane because I thought I have a lot of energy. I think my energy, but that's great because at least you know
Right.
that you gave it beyond the college. You gave it the
I
HBCU you
appreciate
tried.
that.
No,
I,
seriously, and it's important, and more people like you and me, and we need to be on that side so that we can
yes.
take the tree a little bit and show. Because here's the last thing, and I know we keep saying it's the last thing. It's about the nano influencer. It's
Mm,
not about how we keep up with the Kardashians or anyone else who have millions of followers. So that's great. But if you've got somebody, people buy people that they can relate to. And sometimes when they buy from those that have, the big following, that's great because that's the fantasy. Even during the Great Depression, there was always Hollywood and lights. People needed something to get away from, something
right.
to aspire or be inspired by, even if they knew they couldn't acquire it. But when it's people like you and I that say, hey, I was this and then this happened, or I
Right.
got fired, or I went to several interviews and no one would even, I've had cases where they didn't even come out to interview me after they saw on the camera that I was Black. And this is a true story in the last 10 years. So I
Right.
had to say, hone down, layer up, Joss, and make it happen. Do what you got to do. If that means your laptop is in your dining room, in your kitchen,
Right.
your lap literally sitting on your bed until you can get your office built, in which that's a true story. I did that too. Then you do what you have to do, but
Right.
just don't give up. Keep that fire burning, and we got that. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop talking because we could just keep going on and on.
We're going to do this all again. And we're going to do it, the kids in the room one of these days.
Right. Oh, we'll do it. So we'll do it by next year, and
Yep.
we'll do it around the world.
Yep.
And we'll talk to the kids. We'll be back over and on the motherland and the continent. No, we will, and we'll be able to really impact because I still love the human touch.
Yes.
I think
I think
virtual is
now
good.
we appreciate it even more because we've been
Yeah,
denied it for so long.
yeah, it's important, and it taught those people that were going into work and they didn't have to dig in and do what they're doing now. See, we're used to this. We're used to working around the clock when you're an entrepreneur. It's
Right.
not like I'm checking off now or even a couple hours later. You might get up like I did yesterday at 7, and I worked up until 9 o'clock last night.
Hmm.
Because that's what you do. But now people have a greater appreciation. So as I said, the pandemic really create that conscious shift of awareness that people just didn't have before, and they saw how resilient that they could truly be. And
Yep.
truly, I
Yeah.
can end that note saying, "Welcome to being Black," because we've always been resilient. We always knew that. You were telling our story. And then
Right.
you would tell the story to us to repeat so that it became our truth. But for most of us, that wasn't our truth. But it was easier for you to believe it was our truth because then you would know what part of the chessboard to put us on. So we're all
Exactly.
over it. We're all over the chessboard. And like I said, so now is the time. Let's make it happen, and let's do this in a way that the
Benefits the next generation.
the next generation and that progressive minded people can maybe be part of that change. So I'll leave you with that.
Layer up. Bye, Jossie.
Bye. Love you, girlie.
Love you more.